I lived in Japan for 7 years. Instead of taking a flight directly back to the US, I traveled in Asia for a year. For 3 months, I volunteered for an NGO that served women and their families from Myanmar in refugee camps along the Thai border. This photo was taken in a meeting house in the jungle. The inhabitants of this camp were political refugees. The woman reading reminds me of how beautiful simple things like light are, how much I take for granted, that life can change in a heartbeat.
This image just weeks after his inception. It is not a photo of our child, but a lesson God gave me to trust His plan. After 6+ years of angst with infertility, our desperate and often angry prayers for children seemed coldly unanswered by God. Our one last chance for children, IVF, cost our entire savings. After choosing to try the procedure, I finally changed my prayer from a demand for my solution to a desire for God to make clear our path to becoming a family, trusting Him to provide us with His best path to family. His path was awesome.
My friend. She struggled with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for 10 years. This picture shows her in her final stages of her struggle. For me and my family, Heidi was an inspiration. She didn't reflect on how sick she was. We reminisced about our 25-year friendship, our children, and our husbands. We cried. We laughed a lot. We always laughed a lot. My worst days can't compare to those who are suffering physically, psychologically, or emotionally. During this time of uncertainty, with my mom's terminal illness and terrorism finding its way to American soil, I was thankful to have had my mom as a great example and teacher, my friend and the heart of our family. I try to live life like she did, and I know she is proud of me no matter what.
I'd seen magnificent mountains and billions of stars in the heavens made by forces set in motion by God. This is the first time I realized that God created beauty under the earth's surface as well. In this case, in water-sculpted, enchanting Lower Antelope Canyon near Page, Arizona. It is tradition, history, and memory, and a scene played out in countless churches at Christmas, even to this day. But this was wartime. Note the service flag, which contains 1 gold star.
This is a picture of my dad and his twin sister when they were around 2 years of age. It is one of my most treasured pictures because it captures my father smiling and happy. My dad usually had a smile on his face and would talk to anyone, even when we were in a hurry to get things done. I first saw this picture following my dad's funeral in 1995, and my uncle copied it for me. It is framed in a display to remind me of my dad and what a special person he was.
As an 8th-generation Presbyterian, it's interesting to reflect on this history and the families that lived it. This is a 1906 picture of my great-grandfather's family, the 5th and 6th of these 8 generations. Most of them were influential in my youth, personally or in their writings. All experienced the Civil War or its aftermath in Georgia, and many remembered its harshness. Yet none looked derisively on others, perhaps because of their deep connection with the church. Remembering this helps me soften my own perspective on those with whom I might disagree. Transition, showing me with my 2 closest college friends after we had picked up our diplomas. For almost 23 years I had lived in the same house with my family, attended the same church, had the same large circle of friends, many of whom I had known since kindergarten. Now, within 2 weeks of graduation, I would get married, move, and start a 40-year career with my first employer.
After years of having artificial trees, our family ventured out on a foggy morning after Thanksgiving to choose and cut down the year's Christmas tree, a delightful day, despite the inclement weather, and took this photo of my husband carrying away the tree and walking into the fog. It would be some time before we knew how the late effects of treatments would impact all our lives. This photo illustrates how Mario faces life, often carrying a heavy load and somehow able to walk boldly into a foggy unknown.
Monument Valley in Utah contains numerous huge rock formations that silently stand upright in the desert, each unique in shape, each towering over the desert floor, each featuring different hues of red and brown. A long list of adjectives came to mind to describe the scenery as we drove down a dusty dirt road to view these monuments. Epic, awesome, immense, huge, colorful, inspiring, beautiful were some of those adjectives. For eons they have weathered the passage of time. In comparison, we humans seem so insignificant and fragile and temporary.
In first grade, her father left our home. She was very aware that it was now just the two of us. I promised her we would not move from her home. It was painful. The dream of family died. We grieved for a long time. Still are. Resentment, anger lingered 10 years. We joined First Pres to help us deal with our pain. She found a new family. This picture is showing my brother Ted Johnson and myself when we were growing up in Marblehead, Massachusetts. Ted passed away in February this year. Ted was 14 months younger than me, but he was the one I looked up to and to provide safety when I was scared to do something on my own. I like the picture because it shows him holding my hand, and I do miss those hands as I go forward without him.
This photograph brings to my mind the importance of getting out into nature to experience it. That nature and experiences in nature have benefits to human existence, physical, mental, and spiritual. I arose early to get on this dune in early light, climbing sand to enjoy this natural setting.
July 11th, 2012, my birthday, and 1 month before being diagnosed with MSA, multiple system atrophy. My life changed, forcing me to accept a future where I had little or no control. My devoted husband, a wonderful supportive extended family, along with many friends, are traveling this uncharted road with me. Instead of enjoying and living out my life on my terms, I have learned how to appreciate and be thankful for the life I've lived. I trust that my family and friends will carry on my legacy in their lives and into the future.
The picture speaks to me of the beauty of God's creation in amazing colors, bright blue sky, ocean, and pool plus vibrant hot pink azaleas. I never tire of looking at this picture and appreciating God's hand in nature everywhere.
Hanging in a frame on my bedroom wall, it is a chalk drawing, drawn in a high school art class and hung in a hallway display case at school. My 17-year-old daughter was artistic. This display was an honor. Sadly, she never reached her potential. Illness took her life just a few months later. A neighbor and art teacher had it framed for us to enjoy and remember.
This is a picture of my son Adam when he was only a few hours old after being born very premature. I have never forgotten when he grabbed my finger and held on. It was a special moment during a stressful time. It felt like we bonded, that he knew I was his father, and I knew that we belonged to each other forever.